Hopefully you've had an opportunity to try to match these emotions to the emoticons, and the way you score it is just compare it to the key down below and count how many correct answers you have. If you score between 8 and 10, that's an indication that you have a high emotional intelligence. People that have Asperger's disorder tend to have great difficulty in distinguishing these different facial expressions and matching them to the correct emotion that they express. So emotional intelligence is broadly described as the ability to express, recognize, and use emotions appropriately within social interactions. According to Daniel Goleman, who did a lot of research on emotional intelligence, it includes one's ability to perceive others' emotions, their ability to understand themselves, and then their ability to use their emotions to aid them in good decision making. Because it turns out that making decisions without any kind of emotional input doesn't usually result in the best decisions. So we need to kind of resist that idea that we have to be completely rational and not depend on our emotions, because our emotions do contribute to good decision making. And then lastly, according to Goleman, it's about having the ability to manage your own emotions in ways that fit the current situation. Well, I'll talk about some emotions that do influence our reasoning. This is relates to number 6 and 7 on your study guide, the broaden and build hypothesis. So this theory states that our positive emotions broaden our thoughts and actions. So for instance, they're going to help build our social resources and connectivity to others. They usually put us in touch with emotions that surround commitment and empathy and inclusion. So they're important to keep in mind. So, something related to this broaden and build hypothesis is the idea that happiness prompts people to reason in more flexible, creative ways, and also in more inclusive ways. So for an example, one of the studies that they did in relation to this concept was they asked people to generate as many descriptors of the word carpet, kind of a neutral word, that they could come up with. And they found that people that were originally in happier moods before they came up with this list generated a lot more words. They were a lot more creative. They were a lot more descriptive. So the happier people might come up, for instance, with the word associated with carpet, like fresh or texture, which you wouldn't normally, every day associate with such a neutral word like carpet. Other studies have identified that when negotiators are in a very good mood, they tend to get better deals in the agreements that they make. They're much more likely to reach a beneficial agreement, or the best agreement that could be made. So number 8 asks you about Haidt's moral foundation theory. And these are the different domains that he identified. According to Haidt, there are 5 evolved universal moral domains in which our specific emotions guide then our moral judgments. So he identified the care and harm domain, the fairness and cheating domain, loyalty and betrayal, authority, subversion, and purity degradation. According to Haidt, we engage these 5 universal moral domains in solving moral dilemmas. Now, here we have this box 6.3 that was taken from your book, and you can read it in detail if you would like to, but it kind of goes over some moral dilemmas and how hate would describe it. So take a look at that. We need to kind of conserve time here, so I'm going to move on. We're going to be finishing up the lecture series for this week with a focus on happiness. Psychologists believe that happiness has, there's 2 different ways so far that we have of measuring happiness: life satisfaction and emotional well-being. So life satisfaction is how well you think your life is going in general. So this is like a self-rating kind of thing. And then emotional well-being refers to our tendency to experience more positive emotions than negative overall. It could be at a given moment or for a specific length of time. Many studies confirm that happiness is correlated with having better health, more longevity, demonstrated by having an experience of less pain than other people, better sleep habits, stronger cardiovascular systems, and a stronger, healthier immune system. This relates to number 9 on your study guide. It asks you about affective forecasting. So that's about predicting how we'll feel in the future. And it turns out we're actually pretty good about predicting the type of emotion that we will feel given a situation, given if a happy event happens or if a sad event happens. We are correct in how we identify the emotion, but we tend to exaggerate the extent of it, how long it will last, and how intense it might be. So, for instance, one might consider how they might feel if they had a romantic breakup. And generally speaking, people would tend to overestimate how sad they would feel. They would be correct in identifying the emotion of sadness, but they would assume that they would feel much sadder than they actually would, and that they would predict that it would last longer, that emotion would last longer than it actually does. So we're often incorrect in that way. So I might predict how happy I'll be if I win the lottery, and I'm probably going to overestimate a little bit, and I'm probably going to overestimate how long I'm going to be happy because I won that lottery. We tend to return to kind of a baseline level that is pretty stable over the course of a lifetime. This also relates to number 9 on your study guide, immune neglect. And this is a tendency to underestimate how resilient we are in responding to difficult times. So people generally, if they go through something very negative, a death, a serious injury, an illness, they tend actually to bounce back a little bit faster than they would expect that they would. Again, returning to that baseline. And this expresses the same kind of idea here. We tend to think if we have an emotional breakup with the partner that it's going to be more traumatic and more depressing than it actually is. So we're more resilient maybe than we might predict. So what are some of the things that result? What are the demographic factors that are associated with happier individuals? Happy individuals are more successful in relationships. They tend to have some kind of religious or spiritual, if not religious, engagement going on. You can kind of relate this to the peak experiences that have been identified with self-actualized individuals in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Age and gender don't seem to really be important in how happy you are. The book points out that younger people tend to think that as people age that they naturally get more grumpy, but the research doesn't actually show that, so that older people actually do tend to even report a higher level of happiness associated with things like gratitude. Money. Turns out, well, money does play a role in people's happiness, but only if you make less than $75,000. So that's kind of the cutoff as far as, which tells us that if your basic needs are taken care of and you have a little bit left over and you don't have to sweat every day about taking care of your needs and having a roof over your head, then you're going to be pretty happy, and that exponentially it doesn't increase more after that $75,000 per person level. That in fact some of the tendencies towards materialism actually can decrease your happiness. And we find that there are happier people in countries where they have individual rights and freedoms and plenty of economic opportunities available. Even though there doesn't seem to be an association between materialism and happiness, or I guess there's an inverse relationship or a negative correlation there, there does seem to be an experience of more happiness when individuals with more money spend that money instead of on things, on experiences. So experiences that include social connectivity. So that's an important piece that we've learned in recent research. I wanted to include this in the lecture because I thought it was an interesting focus on nirvana in the brain, and I encourage you to read through that and some ways that meditation can work towards increasing your happiness. I strongly believe it's something we need to look at. You probably are familiar with some of the research that's been done on meditative techniques, all different types, anything related, anything including any kind of rhythmic activity, breathing activity, and practicing that and its effects on the brain, and being able to actually generate more brain tissue so that the brain doesn't lose its thickness as we age. So just some real structural evidence of changing your whole brain structure and the emotional quality of your life, and thus your relationships and happiness in general. So I encourage you to read that and practice some kind of meditative practice that you really are interested in. It's not a one type of meditation fits all thing. So we each have our unique ways to have our quiet time. So I wanted to let you know, I think I forgot when we talked about emotional intelligence and took that little emotional intelligence test that's in the book. I also posted an emotional intelligence survey for you to spend some time working on if you'd like to do that. I think it's a pretty interesting activity to do. I'm going to be using that in my face-to-face class and see how people react to that as well. So if you have any thoughts on that after looking at it, let me know. And that's all we have for this week on lecture.